This happened during the summer of 2008. For some context, I'm a gay male, and at the time I was in a relationship. Let's call my then boyfriend Mark for privacy reasons. Mark was 35 and I was 30. It was a July 4th weekend and my boyfriend wanted to go camping. He always does this every 4th of July. He usually does this with his ex-wife and son who's 7 years old. However, since he's now out of the closet, he wanted to take me with him this time. A little about me. I'm definitely not an outdoor kind of person. I don't like dirt, I don't like bugs or wild animals, and the thought of not having running water or a roof over my head absolutely terrifies me. Yeah, I know, I'm spoiled rotten. As reluctant as I was, Mark really persuaded me to go, and he reassured me that this would be a weekend for me to remember. Well, he didn't know how right he actually was. He told me we would be leaving Friday morning, which was the 4th, and would come back Monday morning. As we both lived in San Jose, California, the nearest place to camp would be the Santa Cruz Mountains. We were going to go off map in a more secluded area to experience nature and less people. We headed out on Friday morning at around 7 a.m. It was about a 45-minute to an hour-long drive on the car ride there. Mark had told me about these people that supposedly lived there up in the mountains. I kid you not, the very first thing that popped in my head was the movie's Wrong Turn and The Hills Have Eyes. I actually told him that and he just chuckled and said no, but there are some similarities. He explained to me in great detail that these people were uncivilized and not socialized, and really unlike the rest of us in society. They basically lived like cavemen. He also told me that even though he's never come across any of them, he knows that they exist, and he's even been told by his brother that they do indeed exist. I told him it's a good thing you just sprung this on me now because you and I both know I would not have come along with you knowing this information. He went on to explain to me that he told me this not to frighten me, but just to inform me in case anything should happen. But hopefully nothing will actually happen. I asked him how he could possibly know that, and he told me that he always comes prepared. He then went on to tell me that if I didn't believe him, to open up his glove compartment. I did as he asked, and I opened up the glove compartment inside of it, and I noticed a leather case. I then pulled it out, rather confused, fearing what I had already suspected that it was. I opened it, and right before my eyes was a revolver. A gun. I don't really know what kind it was or really anything at all. All I know was that it was a black gun. He told me that he wouldn't have taken us out in the middle of nowhere and not have us protected. I guess maybe in the back of my mind I thought yeah, but seeing it now just makes me very uncomfortable. Also knowing that there's a slight chance of something happening for you to bring that gun makes me even more scared than anything else. He didn't really respond, and he took his hand off the steering wheel and then grabbed my hand and held it tight. He then looked over at me and he told me he'll never let anything bad happen to me. He told me that this weekend was for us to enjoy each other's company and that that's what it'll be. He did a really good job of reassuring me because I didn't think about the gun again after that. We eventually reached our destination not too long after that. All around me was nature. There were trees, branches, rocks, and boulders just about everywhere, and you could barely see the sky from all of the trees blocking out the sunlight. We then began to unload everything from his car. I'm not gonna lie, I was really impressed by what he had brought. A 2-bedroom tent, a king-size airbed, and a portable generator with 3 outlets to run power off of. Wow, you know, maybe this won't be so bad, I said. He kind of did a little smirk after I said that. My cell phone didn't really get any service whatsoever and was basically useless, but I did use it as an MP3 player. Mark then said to me, "Yeah, well, I'm gonna need power because I have to get some work done this weekend," as he pulled out his laptop from the back seat. "So what am I supposed to do, go play outside while you're working?" I said. He mentioned how I brought my books, magazines, and my Nintendo DS, so obviously I had ways to occupy my time as well. He was right. I did bring those things to entertain myself, and was absolutely delighted that I could enjoy them longer with the help of portable electricity. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday were pretty uneventful. We took hikes, made campfires, took naps, relaxed, and then did some barbecuing. I actually really did enjoy myself. That is, until Sunday night. We were in bed and Mark was asleep and I was reading an R.L. Stine Fear Street book. I thought I had heard something deep into the distance. Now, I was kind of used to all the little noises of animals, like all of the chipmunks and squirrels running around through the leaves, but this sounded more distinct. It sounded like footsteps, but not from an animal, but a human. It also had sounded like whoever it was trying to walk as quietly as possible. No, I thought, it's just my imagination from reading this book. I set the book down and started to strain to hear more. Whatever it is getting closer. A bear, maybe? I looked over at Mark, who was sound asleep, contemplating what to do when the footsteps reached the tent. Right above our heads was a zippered screen window that we had zipped closed, and that was where whatever it was outside had stopped. I held my breath, and all I could really hear was my rapidly beating heartbeat. Then I heard it. It was someone else breathing. Not Mark, but whoever it was that was outside. I wanted to wake Mark up, but I knew if I did, he would probably make some kind of noise and that would alert whoever it was that was out there that we were awake. That was when I heard a click. I know that sound. It's the same click sound when I opened my pocket knife. Oh my God, I thought. This is it. This is where I'm going to perish. Damn it, Mark, I thought. I just knew this was a bad idea. Then I heard that blade running against the tent, slowly all around. I knew this person had to know that at least one of us was awake. The sound of the blade went all along the side of the tent and then came back around to where we were and then started yet again. Mark, wake up! He started to groan and then I whispered to him that there's someone outside. I couldn't really see his face or anything for that matter because I had turned off the reading light. We then both saw a flashlight that was shining on the tent. Mark then reached over the side of the bed and grabbed his case and then pulled out the revolver. Mark then yelled out loud, "Whoever's out there, I have a gun and I will absolutely not hesitate to shoot you in the face. Leave now or I will." The flashlight then switched off and whoever it was started to walk away. Not even a speed walk though, just casually walking away and without any sort of light. It was also totally pitch black out there. Mark held onto the gun as I just laid there in horror. It was dead silent. We didn't say a single word. We both just listened for any kind of sound. Somehow in all of that chaos, I must have fell asleep at some point because I woke up to Mark shouting my name to come outside. I rubbed my eyes and looked at my watch and it was 6:15 a.m. and it happened to be light outside. I darted up and ran outside to see what he was yelling about. I then ran to him to see him kneeling down by his tires. All of the tires had been slashed and the passenger side window had been totally shattered. "What the hell?" I shouted. "So what are we going to do now?" Mark grabbed my hand and said we're going to walk away as fast as we can before whoever did this comes back. "My wallet," I said. "I really need to get my wallet and my keys and phone." My phone was still in the tent and I rushed over to grab it and my messenger bag, then realizing, oh wait, my wallet and my keys are still in the glove box. Oh crap. I ran to the car to notice that the glove box was completely torn open and everything was gone. I then started to cry. Mark, they have everything. They had taken my driver's license, my house key, and my money and bank cards. Mark yelled so loud that I heard his echo. "Let's go. It's only about 1.5 miles to the highway and we can flag someone down or get a call box," he said. Weak and scared, I started walking with him down the dirt road. As we walked, I could sense that there was someone near us. I began to get that feeling of being watched. Oh no, I thought. Please let us get out of here in one piece, please. Mark then stopped me and he said that he didn't think we're alone, but to just keep moving. He told me exactly what he told me before, that he'll do whatever he has to protect us. I was really thankful that we had that gun, but I just wish we weren't in this predicament to begin with. Speed walking and getting tired and thirsty, I could hear cars in the distance. Finally reaching the highway, we finally got signals on our phones. Mark called the police. The police arrived in less than 5 minutes. 2 patrol cars arrived. Mark explained everything while I sat on the curb. I was questioned about the events and said that all of my identification and cards were stolen, and my house and car keys as well. The officer told me to cancel all of those cards immediately, and to also have my house locks changed ASAP, as well as to have the vehicle's lock changed too. Another 2 officers arrived, taking Mark and I back to the camp. I really didn't want to go, but having the police with us felt somewhat safe. Mark had called his insurance and we were expecting a tow truck. When we arrived back to the camp, 3 of the officers looked around and took pictures. They also questioned us some more and sealed off the area with yellow tape. The officers asked Mark and I if we had any idea why or someone would do something like this. I told him no, and that I didn't really tell anyone besides my mother and best friend that I was coming here. Mark said that he had only told his ex-wife, who was at home with their son. I honestly thought maybe it was her because she obviously didn't like me, and the feeling was pretty mutual, but Mark and I got together way after they divorced. So all of her rage at him was directed at me, but I could handle her and didn't really see her as a threat. The officer said that it was most likely an isolated incident, and it could have been someone who most likely didn't really agree with our alternative lifestyle. Big surprise, I thought, but even this was pretty extreme, and I wasn't really buying all the crap that the officer was telling us. It kinda seemed like he knew more than what he was telling us, so I decided to ask what was gonna happen moving forward. The officer just told me that he had our information and that they'll report and investigate, and if they come up with any leads, they'll let us know. He also told us once more to change all of our locks and cancel all of our credit cards, and to let them know if we come up with any new information. Great, I thought, so that's it. After about 10 minutes later, the tow truck finally arrived. On the way back to the city, I was in so much disbelief that I just wanted to tell "I told you so" to Mark, but he looked so hurt and confused that I just couldn't do it. Plus, it did suck to be right about that. I actually really did want to enjoy myself. As soon as I got home, I immediately canceled all of my cards and then had my mom call the locksmith and change all of the house locks. I also made an appointment for my car to get the locks changed, and we left it in the garage. Nothing ever really came of the situation, or if it did, Mark never informed me of it. Me and Mark broke up a couple of months later for other reasons, but I always wondered if he had ever went camping again after all that happened. As for me though, I now live in a different state where camping is pretty popular. Since that happened, I haven't camped since, and I never will ever again. My story begins back in 2018. I was 18 years old at the time, and I'm a female. I was with 3 of my friends at McDonald's. It was late at night and we were hanging out, and we had been there for a while, and everything was fine. My friends and I were sitting at a booth-style table. My 2 friends that were sitting in front of me noticed a guy sitting by himself just kind of staring at us with a really creepy smile, and then he started waving at us. At first, we just thought he was trying to be nice, but when 2 of my friends went up to the kiosk to order something, he was sitting in the booth right beside it. I could see in the reflection in the window in front of me that he started talking to them, so I waited for them to come back and I asked them what he had said to them. They then told me that he had asked if they wanted to come back to his place and go sledding at Little Red, which was the local skiing and snowboarding hill around our area. I really found that to be a super creepy thing to say to 2 teenage girls who you don't even know. I'm pretty sure he said more to them, but I can't quite remember what else since this all happened about 2 years ago. I would also like to add that this man looked like he was around his late 20s or early 30s, and he looked kind of like a hick or a redneck. Sorry if that's offensive, but it's the only way to really describe him. We eventually decided to leave, and he then stands up right at the same time, so we continued on out, and all of a sudden we look behind us and he's now running right towards us. We decide to bolt for the car, and we can see him at the front of the building standing on a table, and I'm pretty sure he yelled something, but I really didn't hear because I was trying to get into the car. To our horror, he then starts running right towards us. My anxious friend that was driving the car tries as fast as she can to back up and drive away, but this crazy guy is catching up to us and trying to grab the back door handle to open it. Luckily it was locked and we were able to get away. We immediately called the police and drive to the local police station after that happened. As soon as we get there, we go to the front of the building and we notice him drive by and rev up his engine and then speed off. We panic and run back to wait in the car for an officer to come down to the station. When he finally arrives, he then lets us in and takes our statements. He tells us that he'll keep an eye out for his vehicle. We also unfortunately weren't able to get his license plate number, so that really didn't help. We end up leaving and nothing much really comes of it after that. I told my parents all about the story and they were shocked. My mom thought that he was a total creep and wanted me to be super careful wherever I go. I honestly thought that I'd probably never see him again after that happened, but about 4 or 5 months later, I'm at the same McDonald's with one of my friends that was with us before. I happened to notice the guy that had been creeping on us a couple months back. I glance at him and see that he's looking right at us. We quickly grab our order and head straight to the car. We had parked near the same spot as last time, so people were parked behind us. We see that he's already at his truck and he's a spot right behind us. He definitely knew that it was us because my friend drove a bright little orange car that always sticks out. We get in the car and I can see his creepy, eerie grin yet again. This time he was standing with someone, but I'm not really sure who it was. We were both getting really anxious and managed to drive away without him chasing us this time. Fortunately, I haven't seen him since that happened, and I really hope it stays that way. I'm honestly really glad that I was with a group of friends because I really don't know what I would do if I was by myself. So to that really creepy guy at McDonald's, if you happen to see me again at McDonald's, please just stay away from me. Hey everyone. I'm a 30-year-old male by the name of Alan. It's a really sensitive subject, but I need to get this off my chest and also spread some awareness of what I experienced in my childhood. I just want you all to know that you're not alone, for those of you who understand the pain on what I'm sharing. I really want to preface that this isn't your standard scary story, but one that absolutely traumatized me nonetheless. It's very dark. With that being said, here's my story. It all took place when I was about 8 years old. I believe it was around springtime of 1998 during the day in Utah. At the time, it was just me and my stepfather in the house. I honestly don't really remember what he was doing. He was somewhere in the house and my mom was at work at the time. Anyway, I decided to take a shower. While I was taking a shower, I saw my stepfather walk by on the other side through the sliding glass door. I thought nothing of it at the time, so I just continued doing my business. I'll share the details, but just a warning, it's extremely graphic. I'll give you a second to click off if you don't want to hear this. After about a minute or so, my stepfather walks into the shower in the nude and then closed the sliding door right behind him. I was really confused by this and my mind was racing. I was absolutely paralyzed by what I was experiencing in that moment. I don't really remember what he was telling me, but I just know that his intentions were not good. While he was staring at me with his hungry eyes, he slowly moved down on his knees and began to perform oral sex on me. This went on for about a few minutes, but as I mentioned before, I was absolutely paralyzed by my stepfather doing this. A couple of minutes went by and he wanted me to do the same thing to him. I started to cry, tears were streaming down my face, and the fear was flowing through my mind. This is where my mind decided to tell me to run, so I did. I darted out of the shower and into my room and stayed in there till my mom got home from work, which felt like an eternity. Thank God my stepfather never came after me. Once my mom got home, I told her about everything that happened. Some time goes by and my parents pulled me to the side and they told me that this will never happen ever again. That very same year, we had all moved back to Texas, where we were originally from. After that ordeal, things between my parents and myself went in a different direction. My parents stayed married and they just kept the situation quiet as if nothing ever happened. Things were awkward, even faking a smile. I kid you not, my entire childhood was an absolute prison. At the beginning of 2012, I broke down and finally shared my story through Facebook. Unfortunately, I didn't really get much of a response, so I decided to take it down, thinking that no one really cared. After that, my stepfather and I officially stopped talking. A couple of years went by and it's now 2015. I finally found the courage to seek help, so I went to get counseling. I also tried giving my stepfather a second chance. The reason why I made that decision was because my mom passed away in 2011 and I didn't really have any other family to talk to, and I just wanted to try and forgive him. Things seemed to work out for a little bit, but it didn't last very long. About a year later, I get a random phone call through Facebook Messenger from a family friend by the name of Hector. He had asked me a few questions about my Facebook post. I told him everything and Hector was really upset. He went on to explain to me that his son had told him that he was also molested by my stepfather. Apparently he did this whenever he had babysat him between 2012 to 2016. My stepfather was finally reported to the police by Hector and myself. It took the police about 2 years to finally take action, and he's now under house arrest. It's February 2020, and my stepfather's court date is right around the corner. I think I'm finally ready to have my closure.
So this happened around a year ago, but it feels fresh in my mind because of how strange it was. But it probably won't be as crazy as most of the other stories here. First, some context. I was about to turn 20 and I was in my junior year of college. The college I attended was fairly small, but in a very large city. It's a private school, and instead of dorms, they rented out various apartments for the students in residential apartment buildings in an upscale part of the city. I lived in one of them. This was considered on campus, in a one-bedroom apartment on the 17th floor with 2 other roommates. Most of the tenants in my building were older businessmen and models. However, there are several colleges in the area that brought in wealthy international students as well, so you'd see a few in the building every now and again. I believe it was a Friday night around 10 p.m. and my boyfriend, I'll call him Sam, and I were watching Netflix and having a glass of whiskey. My roommate and her boyfriend were asleep in the bedroom, but they come in a little later in the story. A few things to note. One of my roommates, I'll call her Amanda, had started living with her boyfriend at the time, who lived a few floors down from us. She was often in and out because she still kept most of her stuff, like clothes and makeup, in our apartment, due to the fact that our school had strict rules, and we had room checks once a month, so it had to look like she still lived there. Another thing was, we never locked our door if someone was awake in the apartment. Probably not the smartest thing, but hey, we were on the 17th floor in an upscale part of the city. We never had a problem before, and we felt safe. The last thing to note here is that the layout of our apartment is important to the story. When you walk in the front door, you're in a large foyer with a closet to the left and a bathroom to the right. There's a hallway straight ahead that branches off to another hallway, which leads to the left into the bedroom. If you pass that hallway and keep going straight, There's an open doorway into the kitchen immediately to the right. If you pass that, you enter the living room, which you can't see into or out of unless you are standing next to the doorway to the kitchen. Now, back to the story. Before Sam and I had finished our drinks, we heard the door open and closed. I assumed it was Amanda coming in to get clothes or something, but I didn't hear anything after the door shut. I thought maybe she had gone to the bathroom, but it was strange since she usually wears heels, and you can hear her walking around the apartment. After about a minute of silence, Sam and I hear someone speaking in a foreign language. We both turn around and look at each other with the same "that is not Amanda" expression on our faces. Slightly spooked and unsure of what is about to happen, Sam and I spring to our feet, and he grabs the pocket knife I had sitting out on my desk. We both stand against the wall, me behind Sam, knife held out slightly in front of him. You could not see us unless you were in the living room. We wait. It becomes clear there is more than one person in our apartment who should not be there. That's when we hear footsteps approaching the living room, and my heart is beating out of my chest. Then, a short Asian man, who looks to be maybe 19 or 20, walks into the room and locks eyes with us. He's wearing nothing but boxers. After a moment of silence and confusion, Sam blurts out, "Who are you?" The intruder looks at Sam, then at the knife, widens his eyes, and utters, and sprints out of the apartment. I assume his intruder friend followed because the door slammed shut and we didn't hear anything else. We ran to the foyer and locked and deadbolted the door. By the time Sam had done this, I'd already dialed 911 and had the operator on the phone. I give the woman our location and tell her what just occurred, and she dispatches a unit to our building. Sometime during this phone call, we hear loud banging on our front door with the sound of the door handle jiggling. They're back. I tell the operator what's going on as I'm giving details about the original encounter, and she's just trying to calm me down, while these guys are banging loudly on our door trying to get back in. After I give all the details, I hang up and immediately text Amanda to not come upstairs under any circumstances. We then go to wake up my other roommate and her boyfriend in the bedroom, who are still sound asleep. As I'm doing this, the banging begins happening intermittently, every 30 seconds or so, for another few minutes. My roommate and her boyfriend came out and sat on the couch looking terrified, and watching and listening to all this go down. It's worth noting that these two are not the brightest of the bunch, but those are stories for another sub. We then hear a few less threatening knocks at the front door, so Sam and I venture out and check the peephole to make sure it's the police and not the two intruders. Sure enough, 3 officers in uniform are standing outside, so we open the door and we begin explaining the situation, giving a description of the guy we saw. We didn't see the other one, but they shouldn't be hard to recognize considering at least one of them was basically naked. As I'm talking to the officers, one of them turns to look to their left. Sure enough, the intruders are walking towards our door again. The officers excuse themselves, close the front door, and go to confront the 2 men. We couldn't hear much of what was going on behind the door, so we stood in the front room waiting for the officers to come back and give us the tea. After a few minutes, the officer knocks on the door again and tells us what they learned. Apparently, the 2 men did not speak much English, but from what they gathered, they were drunk. Like, really drunk. The men told them they were looking for the laundry room. It made sense to me at first, but looking back, I don't think that's what was going on. They had no laundry with them, and it was clear once you entered the front door that it was an apartment and not a laundry room at all. You certainly wouldn't continue walking past the kitchen and into an apartment living room if you were looking to do laundry. But who knows, maybe they were just that drunk. Here's my favorite part of the story. The officers found out the 2 men lived in our building, on our floor, just 2 doors down the hall. As I said before, it wasn't uncommon to see international college-age students in the building, and it could have simply been a harmless, drunken encounter. Something about the whole thing never sat right with me though, and I really felt like I was in danger. I don't recall ever seeing the intruder again after that, and I moved out a few months after. But to the drunken naked man who entered my apartment that night looking to do laundry, let's not meet again. I dated 2 guys at university. One, Nick, lasted a few months. The other, well, it was literally just one date. Before I begin, I must say that I was a little naive, shy, and riddled with anxiety. I I knew enough about the world and wasn't sheltered or anything, but when it comes to male intention toward me, I had low self-esteem and couldn't understand why anyone would be interested in me in that way, so I assumed all guys were just being friendly. Anyway, this second guy, Dave, I met during my first year at university. He was nice enough. We met in a language class I decided to take as an extra, and he smiled and chatted to me for a while. Honestly, now that I think back, I do remember meeting him that day, but I soon forgot about him over the course of the year. One day, toward the end of the first year, he came up to me, calling me by name, which I was surprised at, to be honest. We hadn't spoken since the first class, and I didn't even remember his name. He asked me if we had any homework from another class, a class that I didn't even know he was in. I remember feeling a bit confused about both. How he knew my name, and how he had seen me in a completely different class I hadn't even noticed him in, but I got over it and politely smiled and said we didn't. We talked a bit about how we were going to spend our summers, and that was that. At the very end of that year, our class had a night out drinking, and he was there. My housemate, myself, he and his friend all went to a club, and he proceeded to keep buying me drinks. I didn't really notice much, as he was also buying his friend drinks, but at one point, I declined more drinks, saying I didn't want any more, and he still bought me a drink, which I drank, so as not to appear rude. He dropped my housemate and I off at home. Probably not the best decision to get into a car with a guy who had been drinking, but I was young and stupid, and we all said goodbye. Now, at some point over that summer, I was abroad, and remember I randomly got a Facebook friend request from him. There was nothing abnormal at this point about his Facebook, and he seemed like a typical student doing student things. I accepted, and gradually he began to add all my online accounts. During my second year, I dated Nick, and I didn't see Dave at all until the end of that year. By this time, I had broken up with the other guy, and Dave asked me to go see a movie with him, and I accepted since he was a nice guy. He picked me up, we saw the movie, and he dropped me off again. Nothing weird, I thanked him and he left. We really only talked during the drive there and back, and I began to talk about where I grew up. Now, when I think back, he never divulged any information about himself, other than that he had been married once. I had honestly not realized he was much older than me, as he had quite a young face, but he never divulged his real age. It wasn't until much later that I found this information out. The next night, he invited me to his place, however I declined, telling him that I honestly didn't think there could be anything more than friendship between us. He seemed fine about this, and we went back to being friends. This is where things started to get weird. At the end of the final year, I was due to turn 21. We were having a big party back in my hometown, and I invited him along with more of my friends from university. He contacted me and apologized since he wouldn't be able to make it, and offered to take me out to dinner that evening as an early birthday present. I accepted. We went out, ate, and he offered to walk me home. All the way home, he kept commenting that I lived way out of town. It was a 30-minute walk to university, and 20 minutes into the city, which isn't long at all. I told him this, but he just kept commenting about how far from campus I lived. The house my 3 housemates and I lived in was in a suburban area, and not exactly rural or anything, so I was confused by this. He really made it seem like I lived miles away. Eventually, we got there, and me, being my typical naive self, invited him in, as I felt bad that he had walked out of his way to walk me home. 2 of my housemates were in bed, but one was still up watching TV. The 3 of us chatted for a while before it started to get later and later, and my friend and I started dropping hints for him to leave, and he just wasn't. We said we were tired and he just kept talking, somehow always moving the conversation towards sex. It must have been about 3 or 4 a.m. before my housemate, a lot bolder than me, finally stood and told him we were going to bed and that he had to leave. For years, we thought he just didn't get hints and was a bit dense, until a few months ago. Fast forward, and I haven't spoken to him in years. He blocked me on Facebook because we got into a heated debate about politics around 3 years ago. A few months ago, a friend sent me a news article and commented, "Didn't this guy go to university with us?" Sure enough, there's a picture of Dave. The article? It's about how he was on trial, accused of raping a few women around the time I knew him at university. It also stated he was almost twice the age of the students at that university at the time, a mature student, and a judge had branded him a dangerous man. Looking back, that night, him being reluctant to leave suddenly made a lot more sense. I will forever be thankful to my housemate for not leaving me alone with him in our living room. I'm selfishly happy I never had the experience those girls did. However, my heart goes out to them. I don't know the outcome of the trial, but little things, the hanging around, the constant attempts to turn conversation sexual, the secrecy about himself, buying me drinks after I declined, it all points to the same thing in my mind. I then noticed he still followed me on Twitter, and morbid curiosity enticed me to take a look. It hadn't been used for a long time. However, there was a link to another account he had, one that sickened me. It contained incoherent ramblings about how women were terrible, getting more and more aggressive with each tweet. It quite frankly made me feel sick. I don't know where he is now, but Dave, let's never, ever meet again. A year ago, my girlfriend invited me to move in with her full time. I stayed over before for a weekend. Nothing seemed off about the place or the living arrangement. I didn't get goose pimples or a sense of dread when I roamed around the place. Shortly after her invitation, I chose to move in with her. She was rather insistent that I move in immediately. I decided just to pull up the stakes and find a job in the area after I moved in. This meant I spent most of my day alone in the house. It took a lot longer than I thought it would to get an entry-level job in the area. After a while, I took to laying in bed for an hour or two out of the day. That's when I started to notice strange noises. They sounded like radio commercials and music, though I could never quite make out what was said. The voices had the tones of males and females, but all I could hear was garbled nonsense. Just recall radio commercials for local businesses, interspersed with semi-discordant music, and you're probably close to the mark. A little while after that, I started having vivid, jarring dreams. In one, I was holding an infant, and then I had a seizure, and started squeezing the baby. I couldn't let go, and it had a horrified look on its face. That woke me up, and once I could go back to sleep, I was hit with another. The next one came as soon as I went back to sleep. I was standing in the backyard, then I heard young children's panic screaming. I ran inside, just to see a toddler-aged child running out the front door with an infant slung over their shoulder. I got to the toddler and infant in the driveway where the toddler dropped the baby. The baby started vomiting a large amount of green fluid. Immediately upon waking, I clearly heard, "Every smart homeowner knows," and it faded away. We didn't have a radio or a television on. It seemed like the same kind of commercial mimicry, but with more clarity. On another night, I woke up to a hard slap on the side of my head. I saw my girlfriend standing over me with tears running down her cheeks. She disappeared when I yelled, "Why the hell did you hit me?" To which my girlfriend, laying next to me all along, sleepily stated, "I didn't hit you. What are you talking about?" A couple of weeks after that, my girlfriend went to bed earlier than I. I was on my computer in the finished basement, almost directly under the bedroom. After a few hours, she messaged me and asked me to come upstairs. She said it sounded like there was a block party outside, and she heard people talking outside the window. If there had been anything like that, I would have heard it as well. I heard nothing of the sort, whilst in pretty much the same side of the house. The neighborhood had been quiet all night, for me at least. We resolved to move the bed, just in case we were picking up radio broadcasts or some other odd signal. She had heard the same things as well before I moved in. The adjustment seemed to significantly cut down on the odd commercial noises, though I noticed them for a couple of seconds, especially when tensions between her and I were elevated. Over the coming months, there was a host of other small odd occurrences. After the basement became unnaturally cold, I began to feel like I wasn't alone. I would catch brief glimpses of a naked man facing away from me in the basement. I had a general feeling I wasn't welcome. The worst instance happened when I was in the middle of remodeling the basement half bathroom. I went from sweating to practically freezing in an instant. I felt like something was standing just behind me and off to the side, with about as much directed menace as I'd ever felt. I'm not religious, but I started naming as many saints as I could remember while I finished my process. Then I got the hell out of there, and I decided I would stream some games from the basement PC to the upstairs television while my girlfriend slept in. I started having all kinds of bandwidth problems, then somehow I was signed out of my account. To my knowledge, that needs to be done manually. Shortly after that, she woke up from a bad dream. She was with her mother, and they came back to her mother's house to find the door ajar. They found that her cats had been messily slaughtered and fed to dogs with various anti-Semitic epithets spray painted on them. All throughout this time, our relationship deteriorated. She would become physically violent at times. All I could do was block her and attempt to restrain her. This eventually became emotionally abusive as well. The shark-like look of pure hate in her eyes was the most disturbing. Like the woman that I knew just wasn't there. I kept waking up in the middle of the night, flailing. I felt under attack. One night, I bashed my hand on the nightstand. Another night, I woke up outside, fully clothed. She said I had been acting like a lunatic. It all became too much for me, and I moved out. I worry about her, so we still keep in contact. Yet another strange thing happened last night. We were talking on the phone, but I eventually became too tired and fell asleep. She stayed on the line because listening to me sleep helps calm her. When I woke up, we were disconnected. I checked my messages and she wanted me to call her back. I blurrily called her back and started to go back to sleep. I heard a faint voice on the line, which I brushed off as some podcast on her tablet, until she started responding to me. I perked up a bit and heard a voice that sounded like mine, though I couldn't make out what was being said. I asked her who she was talking to, which confused her. She thought she was talking to me. I asked her what the voice had said to her, and she said it sounded like me asking her if she was okay, if she had found a job yet. I told her that I had said nothing, though I had heard something that sounded like me as well. Naturally, this unsettled her, as we both know something is wrong in the house. I don't know if there's something in the house itself, or if it can be tied to a certain relic she has. It's a chakwe, a tribe from Angola, mask, which symbolizes a mother being separated from her child as he enters manhood. I've urged her to donate it to some curator, as there are several in the area. The tribe itself is known to use their crafts as commodities, so I can't be certain about that angle, although I know something in that house is disruptive, and loves to do it.